All right, how's everyone doing? I'm Rich CELENZA. Thanks for tuning in to the Rich CELENZA Show. WTF are you talking about? So what I want to call today my podcast is the less you get injured, the longer you're going to last. And I'm going to kind of get into what I mean by that. And I also want to get into something, I kind of was on both sides of this, but I also want to kind of call it, I was kind of torn between that and you should learn how to become your own specimen project. And I'm going to kind of give you an idea what that means, kind of both of those. But like I just said, the less you get injured, you know what I mean, in the long run, the better off you're going to be. So I was just actually having a conversation with my mother not long ago, and she was always a very, very strong woman. And I mean, literally, I think, can't remember how many, like I was always lifting weights, even starting at about 12 years old, but I had a weight set at like 5 years old. My mother and father got a divorce. She gave it to him, and then I ended up with it in my bedroom, the old school, like kind of Joe Weider bench with the weights that were full of sand, you know, that old school 70s stuff. My mother used to actually lift weights with me, and even throughout high school, I had some weight, like I'm not saying, I was actually bench pressing. I was one of the strongest bench pressers in my high school, but she would bench press with me. She'd curl with me. I think she was curling up to, I want to say 60, 70 pounds. My mom was probably bench pressing with me up into the, 135 pounds in that range, which sounds crazy, but she is one of the strongest women I've ever seen. She's got broad shoulders, and she's just extremely strong. My father's on the thinner side, but he's a very strong man as well. They both have incredible genetics. But now as my mother's getting older, just like a lot of other people, their bodies are breaking down. And I'm going on 50. I can feel it as well. And I've been talking to my mother about this, and I think one of the problems I think a lot of people have as they get older is they're not as strong as they once were. And when they were strong, they didn't even acknowledge how strong they were, right? And that doesn't mean you have to be, I'm not even talking about people that lift weights or somebody that's really physically fit or anything. I'm just saying in general, the strength that you have now, most likely as you get older. Now, of course, everybody's different. Some get stronger as you get older because you may have not been in shape or whatever. But I'm talking about people going in their 60s, 70s, and 80s and things of that nature, is you start to lose strength. And I once heard something from a celebrity regarding working out. And the thing that she said, which was quite interesting to me, is as you get older, you shouldn't be working out less. You should be working out more. You should become more fit. And it made a lot of sense, because one of the things she said was a lot of us, and I can relate to this, after, through your 20s and 30s, especially with men with brute strength and things like, we're strong. And what happens, I think, a lot of times is we're always trying to hold on to that strength. I'm doing that now. I'm going on 50 years old, and I'm still constantly trying to hang on to a little bit of my past. I tell everybody, don't worry about the weight, but there is an insecurity with me that if I keep getting weaker, which I am getting weaker, because right now I'm probably at about, I'm not exaggerating, probably 60% weaker than I was throughout my 20s and 30s. So just even, for instance, I used to bench press, say, 225. I'm just using this for an example. 25 to 30 times to warm up. Now, 225, if I can do up to 10, would be awesome for me. My shoulders, my elbows, my joints, I've definitely taken a toll on my body. And I'm still decent with curling, but I used to curl all the way up to 185 pounds. I used to rep out 135 pounds straight bar like it was really nothing. And now I'm at about 95 pounds for reps, but still it's kind of, especially my legs. My legs was one of the strongest features I had. I used to go up to 500 pounds, deep squats, I used to do a few sets, 10 reps. My legs were strong. Now I don't even go over 185. And on the average, I'm just doing 135 just because of my joints again, my knees, my lower back. I've really taken a toll on it. So I do lift for more health and I work out, but I also try to still kind of incorporate heavy weights because I do have size. And when I kind of go down, I'm kind of like, if you've ever seen like ex-bodybuilders and things, because I used to hold between 230 and 250 for many years, my skin starts to sag. But back to me having to acknowledge I I need to keep focusing on is health, not power and strength. And I've kind of been telling my mother this as well. You can't always get caught up that, in the situation, because nobody wins against Father Time. But again, learning to work out for reasons that is going to keep you healthier. And back to, the less you get injured, because back to that, a lot of my friends that were ex-powerlifters, bodybuilders, or just weightlifters in general, or athletes, I think a lot of us get caught up with trying to hang on to our past and we get injured. Now, I can only talk about like when I started playing even Pop Warner football at a very young age. I was constantly playing sports, not only, obviously football, basketball, baseball. I love boxing, wrestling, tennis. I love floor hockey. I didn't play ice hockey. I played all different types of sports. I was obsessed with sports. That's all. My mother said she should have nicknamed me Bally because I never really was into toys. I only wanted to play sports. I only wanted to sleep with balls and mitts and bats and all this crazy stuff. But I realized when I was younger, I was kind of injuring myself a lot. And even when I hit high school, I was pulling my lower back out because I think I was always lifting weights every day, doing wrestling every day, boxing, all these different things. Playing basketball, just constantly taking a toll on my body. And it was interesting because even in my, back then I was just, I think playing football a lot, getting hit in the head was causing some issues. And then when I left that and just started working out after high school, I didn't do any sports, but just lifted heavy weights, how much stronger I started to feel. But all these, injuries and all these things we kind of do to ourselves physically, they're going to take a toll on us. And it can even be the way you lift boxes. It could be certain things you do at the workplace. It could be anything that you're doing. It just really prevent injuries is what I'm trying to really pay attention to what's working for you and what's really hurting you. And that goes even for, if you don't work out, you might want to start stretching, swimming, especially if you're going on middle-aged. And again, when I was discussing with the celebrity talking about working out, if you can figure things out that you like to do, it could be as simple as walking with your girlfriend, your wife, or your kids, or swimming, or again, hiking. It doesn't always have to be go to a gym and spend the time doing that. It doesn't mean that you have to go join a team or play basketball or compete or any of these things. But really start to get blood flow, because you are going to get weaker. And your bones and everything, your joints and your hips, all these things, it's going to catch up with you. And you really got to start paying attention to that if you want to live a longer, healthier life. I just saw a quote, and I used to see it years ago. Being fit is easy. Being out of shape is hard. And obviously, I think you know what that means, where the better you are in shape, the easier it is to kind of be mobile and do things with a lot of people. But you don't realize a lot of times the more you're out of shape, the less mobile you become. And the harder it is on yourself, mentally and physically. And I always talk about this kind of my podcast, that I always talk about death is kind of hunting us to a certain degree. And we're most likely going to die of a few different things. It could be, a lot of people just want to die and fall asleep, I guess that'd be the simplest way. Or it's going to become very sudden. It could be a car accident, plane crash, whatever the case may be. Or it could become an illness. And, it really comes down to those few things. Most people die of illnesses, and I discuss those things with my mother as well. And I'm sure if you know a lot of people, and I'm sure you do, or you watch the news or whatever, you're seeing people pass away of a lot of different diseases and things in that nature. So if you do want to live a longer, healthier life, just really start to look at what you're dieting, your sleep, drinking more water, and just trying to live a healthier lifestyle. That doesn't mean, again, you have to change your eating habits. I always say, our eating, or if you love a certain type of food and that's how you want to live, I don't blame you. If your foods are fattening, maybe just back up on your portions. Obviously, also start learning to eat at different times throughout the day. That also may be putting weight on you. So now let's get into being your own specimen project. So the thing I talk about all the time too is you are your own unique. No one's like you. Physically, mentally, you are programmed entirely different from everyone else. People may look like you. You may have brothers, sisters. I don't care. cousins, whatever the case may be. But for the most part, even if you're a twin, you're just, even if you're raised in the same household, all that, you're a different person. Now, maybe genetically, you may look the same on the outside. Physically, you are different. Because, again, even if you're a twin, you're both going to do things different physically. One may be more athletic than the other. One may be mentally stronger than the other. And one may be more coordinated. Even if you see a lot of athletes that are twins, they usually even take on different positions, like in the NFL or the NBA, or one's in the Olympics. Usually they're never going to be identical, right? I mean, if they both ran a race, usually for the most part, one's going to be faster than the other. But you've got to look at yourself as a total individual and observe kind of who you are and start figuring out what's going to be, what's going to help you the best personally, not what's always worked for someone else, right? I always say, take on all the knowledge of everyone. Even if you go to a gym, you see somebody who has very similar genetics and you want to look a certain way, or if you're in a sport and you see somebody who's excelling at certain things. Now, I'm not telling you to go on steroids or any of that shit. I'm saying naturally. And if you want to go on steroids, go do whatever you want to do. But I'm just saying, start really noticing what works for you, what doesn't work for you. Because again, no one lives the same life as anyone else, really. We all have different sleeping patterns, eating differently. We all have different jobs. Again, we all think differently. Again, we were all programmed differently. We all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. That's mentally and physically. I don't care who you are or who you think you are. There's somebody always out there stronger than you, faster than you, smarter than you, right? And you may be smart in a lot of things, but you're not smart in all things. But when it comes to your own body, I'm talking about, and even your mind, start to program yourself, but really pay attention to what is working for you. A lot of times we know we're doing certain things that aren't helping us, that are actually hurting us. Or we see things that are helping us, but we're either too lazy to keep up with them, or we kind of ignore them. Because a lot of times I think people, they want to succeed in certain things, but they're afraid to change their identity as being successful because they want people to feel sorry for them. They've had an identity of not succeeding, so they may get things from other people catering to them, and that can be maybe not even financial. I'm saying emotional support or all this, like the lovable loser or all those type of things. Don't go for that shit, man. Really, in my opinion, again, study who you are, and if you want to start succeeding, be the one that doesn't really complain. Be the one that leads by an example, that gets things done. You're the one that's living the life you wanted to lead. If you wanted to lose weight, show everyone, I can do this. Don't talk about it constantly. If you want to join a gym, or if you want to get a certain type of body, or if you want to get a certain type of job, or all those things, just go after it. Even if you fail, I can assure you, people are going to respect you a lot more than if you never went after anything. I'm always going after things, and for the most part, I'm always failing. But the one thing I always hear from everybody is like, I can't believe you're doing this. I can't believe you're going after that. Because what I realize, a lot of people are afraid that when they fail, like the whole world is looking at them. For the most part, no one even knows what you're doing. You got to realize that. Except you, maybe if you're married, or maybe your brothers or your sister or your parents or a couple colleagues, no one really gives a shit. So back to you kind of learning to, again, be your own specimen project. You really got to realize, again, everything you do is kind of affecting your future, right? And everything you say and every move you make, and that's financially, that's emotionally, that's physically, keeps leading you into some type of direction. Is it good or bad? And also, do you keep doing the same thing over and over again, obviously, with not getting any new results? You've got to break out of that pattern. Study yourself, even if you've got to take notes. Like if you looked after, a month, write down everything you kind of did, or even if you go to your social media page, right? Go look in the last year. Stalk yourself and say, wow, at this point in time, I was doing this. I was, oh my God, I remember I did this. I was very happy. Oh my God, what happened here? Why am I miserable? Why didn't I succeed? Facebook, if you're on Facebook or wherever, and they got a lot of people been on there for over 10 years. Where were you 10 years ago? Where are you now? Are you heading in the direction you wanted to head into? Did you get, did I go into a different direction? Am I physically feeling better? Am I mentally feeling better? If not, why? Where was the turn? Kind of like really study your own behavior is what I also like to say, because I don't think a lot of people understand behavior is everything. I believe the way you behave towards yourself and others is everything. And most people, the way they treat themselves is the worst. A lot of people obviously smoke. And again, if you like smoking, good for you. Drinking, again, if you like drinking, whatever. Drugs or whatever you're doing, it could be just, mentally badgering yourself, constantly saying stuff about, in your brain that you're failing, you're a loser. And I think we all go through that. And I think no matter who you are, I can't say everybody, but I think most people in life go through different points in their life where they're depressed at certain times, or they're very excited at different times. They feel great at certain times. They feel like shit other times. All these type of things, right? But again, if you kind of start studying your behavior and acknowledging, like kind of back to saying, wait a minute, like, and it took me years to do this. Like, I usually have no filter, and I still kind of don't. But I really had to look back and say, Rich, even if whatever you're about to do, is it really the right move? Like sometimes making no move is the best move too. And that's especially, I talk about that in relationships with, in my Mastering Self-Confidence program. I do this program where I try to help men find the right woman or women of their dreams. And I'm like, they don't realize how many bullets they've dodged not going out with a lot of women or not really getting tied up. You may be getting rejected constantly, but a lot of women rejecting you, that's a good thing, right? Because a lot of these women probably weren't for you, or a lot of them could have maybe trapped you, or a lot of these things you don't realize you're really dodging a lot of bullets. So don't think too. A lot of times dealing with rejection or a lot of things didn't go your way because you may have went that way and it may have not worked out the way you think a lot of times, but put that aside. Again, study, become your own specimen again. You're kind of like that person who really acknowledges who they truly are, because I don't think most people really acknowledge the way they talk, the way they behave. They don't acknowledge that. They're almost more caught up in following what everybody else is doing or letting other people obviously upset them with the way they're behaving, but don't realize their behavior. And that could be your tone, which I have a problem with that as well. Sometimes I come off like a major asshole because I all of a sudden, I'm pretty silly and open-minded. Then all of a sudden I click, and then I just become this guy who's very, I can't say I'm defensive. Is that the word? Offensive? Defensive? I just screwed that up. Who gives a shit? I'm not editing it. I come off offensive. My father always says that about himself too. He's like, I come off offensive. I'm saying defensive. What am I, nuts? But I have that. And I've been trying to really back up on that, especially when in a relationship with who I'm with, because it's either like I'm all jokey joke and then I'm too serious. There's no middle there for me. And I really, again, had to step back and say, well, how are you behaving right now? Are you really... Is the way even you're behaving making you feel better or worse? Because I think a lot of times we get so aggravated at certain things, we're not actually doing anything for ourselves, but putting more stress on ourselves. If we're allowing everybody to put stress on us, or they know they can put stress on us, again, what the hell are you doing? So again, I'm going to probably wrap it up there, but I just wanted to get this out in the open, and definitely start studying yourself. Make yourself your own project. If you were like a project at work, or I don't care if you go to school or anything, you'd be analyzing different things. You'd be really go back, start writing notes, go back and look at maybe even quotes or posts you've made. I don't care if it's Twitter, again, Facebook, if you do YouTube, or even go back to your history on what you're watching on YouTube or your television history. Like, what is really, are the things you're doing or watching, are they actually helping you mentally? Or the things you're doing even in the gym physically, or are you just kind of in a rut? Are you just going through the motions? Are you, all these different type of things. And it takes a long time to really start figuring yourself out. I think a lot of us have been programmed to almost, it's kind of weird to take notice of yourself and look at yourself and kind of analyze yourself. I think it was kind of weird. It kind of reminded me of the old days when I would, when I first started to work out in the 70s. or hit weights, especially in the 80s. And then it was like, what are you, a weirdo? Why do you want a physique? Or why do you lift weights, or why are you doing that? Are you too into yourself? Or all this weird shit. And then I started, I didn't like hair, so I was shaving all the hair off my chest and arms. No one was doing that in the 80s in high school because I started to get a hairy chest, and I despise my mom. Everybody's freaking out. I'm just, so like I had to analyze certain things. Why do I do this? And I realized I did it because I always wanted to feel clean, but that's what made me feel good. Even though you may find yourself, a lot of times you've been preventing yourself from doing certain things because you're afraid of other people and how they would look at you now. But it could be changing your identity, or maybe, you may want to change your fashion. You may want to change your hairstyle, but you may want to change jobs, whatever it is. Start studying yourself and being honest with yourself, because there's one person you can never lie to is yourself, right? So, definitely start, becoming your own specimen project, all right? And try to not injure yourself, no joke. And you could see a lot of times, I don't care if you're moving. My father moved not too long ago, even though he had movers. Then he kept trying to move, and it burnt him out. He pulled this, he hurt this. Again, you don't want to do that. Start taking care of yourself. You can almost, I see a lot of older people, they're climbing up ladders that are too high. I'm thinking, oh my God, he's 60 years old. He's on a ladder. If he falls 10 feet, where does he stand after that? Is it really worth it? Or all these different types of things. Life's about also it's about preventing injuries, but make sure what you're doing hopefully doesn't hurt you, because a lot of times there's no going back. You may break your arm, your leg, your ankle, all these things, and I definitely don't want that to happen to you, but pay attention. Today I'm in Windsor, Canada. I wanted to go to this breakfast place, and it's all ice. There's an ice storm, and I carry a very heavy bag, and I had a camera in it, and I didn't want it to get cold, so I'm carrying it with me, and I didn't realize how icy it was because it was an ice storm, so it almost flipped me, and I had my phone in my hand, and I didn't want to snap my phone, but I kind of almost threw my hand. I caught myself on the ice, and I felt like I could have snapped my arm very easily, but I kind of know how to fall from wrestling so many years, and I bent my elbow. Thank God I didn't hyperextend it. But those type of fluke things can happen, and I get that. So don't think I'm trying to tell you, whatever, but just be very careful. If it is icy, just wear the right clothes. Pay attention to your surroundings too, right? So, all right, I'm going to wrap it up there. If you get a chance, you can also check out my YouTube channel, Rich CELENZA. What else do we have? Obviously, we have this podcast. We have an Instagram account. I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. So, all right. I wish you nothing but the best. Take care.